The name once carried charm. It spoke of youth, laughter, and a certain easy glamour that lightened the stony grandeur of the monarchy. The House of York, Prince Andrew, Sarah Ferguson, and their daughters, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, were once the smiling face of a modern royal generation. But time has changed that image, darkened it, and burdened it with scandal. What was once the lively branch of the royal family has become a symbol of quiet exile. Behind the polished doors of palaces and the velvet weight of ceremony, a question lingers. Can the York name ever be redeemed, or is it destined to remain the monarchy's unspoken curse? Before we dive in, there's something I need to share with you. Over the past few days, thousands have watched these stories unfold, but most haven't subscribed. If you're one of them, I invite you now to join us. Subscribe to Crownverse so you never miss the next chapter in this unfolding royal history. To understand how the Yorks became the monarchy's most complicated family, one must look back to a time when their name meant something else entirely. In the 1980s, Prince Andrew was the dashing young royal, a naval officer, a war hero of the Falklands, and the Queen's famously favored son. His marriage to Sarah Ferguson in 1986 was celebrated as a storybook affair, a union of energy and optimism that contrasted sharply with the growing frost between Prince Charles and Princess Diana. The public adored them. The Duke and Duchess of York seemed fun, approachable, even human. Their daughters, Beatrice and Eugenie, grew up in the public eye as symbols of royal normalcy, a pair of princesses who smiled easily, laughed loudly, and seemed untouched by the stiffness that often cloaked royal life. But every era of light in royal history seems to carry the shadow of its undoing. For the Yorks, that shadow came in many forms, first through scandal, then through circumstance, and finally through silence. The marriage that once seemed radiant fractured under pressure, its public collapse feeding a tabloid frenzy that defined the early 1990s. Photographs, whispers, rumors, it all chipped away at their image. When Sarah Ferguson was caught in a series of embarrassing situations, the family's standing within the palace shifted. Forgiveness was possible, but full restoration was not. The Queen's affection for Andrew remained, but the institution began to pull back. Years later, when Prince Andrew's name became linked to the darkest scandal the monarchy had faced in generations, the curse of the York name deepened beyond repair. The Jeffrey Epstein case changed everything. The allegations, the interviews, the silence that followed, all became a wound that the royal family could not close. It wasn't just Andrew's reputation at stake. It was the credibility of the crown itself. For the first time in modern memory, a senior royal was publicly removed from duties, stripped of titles, and forced into seclusion. Yet while the institution moved swiftly to protect itself, the daughters of York were left standing in the ruins of their family's name. Beatrice and Eugenie had always occupied an uncertain space within the monarchy. Not working royals, yet not ordinary citizens. They attended royal events, carried out occasional engagements, and represented the crown with dignity when called upon. But their lives were never fully their own. Their father's shadow followed them everywhere. Even their weddings, beautiful and private as they were, carried the quiet subtext of exclusion. There were no grand parades, no national celebrations, no balcony appearances. It was as if the institution, wary of public reaction, chose to let their milestones pass quietly, respectfully, invisibly. And yet, the two sisters have done everything right. They have lived quietly, married without fanfare, pursued work beyond the royal fold. They've spoken warmly of their grandmother, shared their gratitude for the Queen's guidance, and avoided public confrontation. Still, For all their grace, they cannot escape the weight of their surname. Every headline that mentions them seems to circle back to the same point, the fall of their father. In the court of public opinion, innocence and guilt often merge, and association becomes identity. The curse of the York name is not just a scandal, it is inheritance. Inside the royal family, there is sympathy, but also distance. Prince William's stance is clear and pragmatic. The monarchy must be streamlined, its core protected. The next era of royal life is not one of sprawling families and extended obligations. It is one of precision, a smaller, cleaner, more controlled version of royalty. In this new vision, there is little room for those whose presence invites controversy, no matter how blameless they may be. Beatrice and Eugenie, despite their royal blood, belong to an older model of monarchy, one the institution now seeks to leave behind. King Charles, for his part, is both sympathetic and strategic. He has known loss, scandal, and redemption himself, but as monarch, his first duty is to the stability of the institution, not to sentiment. His relationship with the Yorks is cordial, even kind, but measured. His efforts to modernize the monarchy are carefully calculated. To reduce its size, its spending, its exposure, have made it clear that the royal family's future depends on public trust, and trust, once broken, is not easily restored. Sarah Ferguson, ever resilient, remains the most visible of the Yorks, carving a place for herself in the media through openness and candor. She speaks often of forgiveness, of family, of loyalty. But she, too, carries the mark of that family curse. Though she has found a degree of affection from the public in recent years, her association with Andrew ensures she will never fully step back into the fold. She lives at Royal Lodge with her former husband in a kind of genteel exile, close enough to remain connected, distant enough to keep the peace. For Beatrice and Eugenie, this strange in-between existence defines their lives. They are insiders who stand outside, symbols of both continuity and consequence. They attend royal weddings, but not working engagements. They appear on palace balconies only at the most significant moments, and even then, quietly, without fanfare. When they do speak, they choose their words carefully. Their loyalty to their family, to their father, is unwavering. But so too is their understanding that the world will always judge them for what they cannot change. This tension between personal loyalty and institutional expectation lies at the heart of the York tragedy. It is the paradox of monarchy itself, to belong to something greater than oneself, yet to be bound by rules that can turn love into liability. The sisters' situation is not unique in royal history. There have always been branches of the family left to fade quietly into the background once scandal tainted their lineage. But what makes this moment different is visibility. Every movement is watched, every gesture analyzed, every silence interpreted. At public events, the cameras linger on the York sisters, searching for signs of reconciliation, of isolation, of distance. When they stand near Prince William and Princess Catherine, headlines speculate about tension. When they stand apart, the same headlines confirm division. It is an impossible balance, to be royal enough to matter, but distant enough to be uncontroversial. Their efforts to live normal lives, as working women, as mothers, only partially succeed. For the monarchy, there is no such thing as ordinary. The curse of the York name, then, is not only the shadow of scandal, but the impossibility of erasing it. Redemption in royal life is not earned through apology alone. It must be orchestrated, staged, and approved by public opinion. And public opinion, once soured, is rarely merciful. The York sisters' silence, their restraint, their dignity, all might have won admiration in another age. But in today's monarchy, silence can look like guilt, restraint like calculation. Still, within that quiet, there is grace. The sisters remain close to their grandmother's memory, close to their mother, and loyal to the family that continues to define them. When the late queen passed, both Beatrice and Eugenie stood with quiet composure beside their cousins, mourning not just a monarch, but the one person who had always offered them unconditional acceptance. The queen had loved all her grandchildren equally. The bloodlines mattered less to her than the bond. In her presence, they were not defined by scandal. They were simply family. Her passing, in many ways, marked the final loss of that sanctuary. Now, with King Charles at the helm and Prince William preparing for the future, the Yorks stand at a crossroads. Their choices are few, their influence limited. Yet their story remains vital, a cautionary tale of what happens when royal privilege collides with human frailty. They remind the monarchy that titles and bloodlines offer no immunity from consequence. They remind the public that even behind the grandeur of royalty, there are families burdened by shame, struggling to redefine themselves in the face of public judgment. There may come a day when history views the Yorks differently, when time softens scandal into story, and the next generation see them not as symbols of disgrace, but as survivors of circumstance. Until then, they remain bound by the name they were born with, a name that once promised joy and now carries sorrow. Yet within that sorrow lies a strange kind of nobility. They endure, they persist, they love each other in the quiet margins of royal life, unseen and often unthanked. The monarchy has always thrived on its ability to forget, to bury scandal beneath ceremony, to turn history into heritage. But the Yorks represent the part of that history that refuses to disappear. Their existence is a reminder that even in the world's most famous family, forgiveness has limits. That is the true curse of the York name, not disgrace itself, but the inability to escape it. And yet, perhaps that curse carries its own redemption. For in living through scandal, in enduring exile with grace, the Yorks show something profoundly human. In a monarchy that often feels distant, they are fallible, flawed, and relatable. They carry the cost of reputation, so the institution can maintain its perfection. And in that quiet suffering, they serve the crown in a way few will ever acknowledge. When history is written, it may not remember them as heroes, nor as villains, but as symbols of what it costs to be royal, to belong to a family where love and loyalty are often tested by the glare of a relentless world. The House of York may never fully escape its curse, but it will endure it, as it always has, with quiet resilience, waiting for the day when the world finally learns to see beyond the name. If you've made it this far, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Can the York family ever rebuild their place within the monarchy, or is the weight of history simply too great to overcome? Let us know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this journey into the untold corners of royal history, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Crownverse, where royal history lives on.